At some point, I think you just got to say stage dives. It's a young man's game.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
You sound great.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. I am super, super excited to welcome the maker of Racket himself, Stu from SPIRITWORLD. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Excited. Long overdue.
Yeah. Just before we were officially recording, Stu and I were just talking about how I think we have one of those DM relationships that's just like super ongoing, and I've always wanted to have you on the podcast. And like big fan of Spirit World, big fan of Pagan Rhythms. I think if I was going back to the, like my top 9 or top 10 albums of last year, like that was for sure contender on that list. And we've been talking about doing this for a long time, so I'm glad that we're finally sitting down and talking riffs and all things Spirit World.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. I'm excited. Thanks for the kind words. Let's talk some riffs. What do you got? Lay it on me.
Yeah, let's just jump straight in. But before we talk about music, as you know, Stu, we got to check some bevs before the show officially begins. So tell the people at home what you're going to be sipping on. You're coming to us live from the hotel room, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm out on the road working, so I got the workday thermos full of the Califia mocha cold brew with the almond milk.
Very, very
Walmart
nice.
special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that like a constant thing when you're traveling? Just have one of those on cue at all times?
No, I mean, usually when I'm home, we drink a lot of coffee, so I just tried this out to keep something in the fridge, save me some time. Been having some long days, so I thought it'd be nice to just pour and go, but it's Bush League, put it that way.
I see. Yeah. And sometimes like, I think I posted this on my Instagram just a couple days ago. I was at a coffee shop and the guy asked me as like the default for an ice, like, do you want your coffee iced? And I had this like weird perplexed moment of like, do I want it iced? Is it hot enough? And then I got it hot and it was like, no, that was the wrong decision. It's the time of year where everything should be iced at all times for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've been struggling through the heat out here. It's a little hotter in Phoenix than Vegas, so I've been outside a lot for work. Every summer it's the same shit where it's like as soon as it hits like 112, 115 and you work outside, you're just like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? You're like, it doesn't matter how long you live in the desert, you're just like standing outside in oppressive heat, just like inside of your head, just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, why am I here? What led me here? What choices did I make, man? Turn left instead of right, you know?
Right. Yeah, the sense of morality like really comes into play when you're just like sweating out of your eyeballs and you're like, do I want to keep living? I'm not 100% sure. Calgary, ironically, is going through a very similar heat wave right now. So our poor dog is just getting hosed down like multiple times a day just so he can stay cool himself. So, I have the door closed and the window closed just for sound, but it's like it could get a little spicy here in the next little bit. So as far as what I'm drinking for bevs, I'm going to be drinking Prince of Tartness, which is a New England Pale Ale Sour from our friends at New Level, one of our bev sponsors. This is my go-to because I've never heard of a pale ale and a sour being mixed. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, I want one of those two, but the fact that I can get both in one go is pretty sick, in my opinion. Cheers to you, Stu.
Cheers.
Super excited.
Yeah.
So, Stu, we've kept in contact pretty often. So, I like to kind of get a little bit of groundwork before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. So tell me some of the origin for you just getting into heavier music, whether you want to consider that hardcore, metal, thrash, however you want to spin it. Kind of tell me the roadmap that kind of brought you, to this very moment in time.
Sure. I got started out young. My parents had 6 boys. So
okay.
me and my twin brother Bees were supposed to be, my mom talked my dad into having one more kid because she was convinced it was going to be a little baby girl, and then she ended up with 2 fucking psycho dudes, twins. So like, one of those fucked up things. But so I had older brothers already that a lot of my family, like the generation before, was all like cowboys and rodeoing and shit. And so like my parents moved to Vegas, and like my older brothers kind of transitioned where my cousins were all like rodeo fucking cowboys and going pro doing that. Like my older brothers were like first generation punk rockers. We had like a half pipe in our backyard. And so I didn't really, like, I listened to a lot of like country music growing up just because that's what my mom dug, like all that old, like good honky tonk George Jones. Right. But then also at the same time, like I never really listened to the radio because it was always like cassette tapes of like Misfits and like just a bunch of rad shit, Social D in the car, Slayer. And so it wasn't until I got a little older and like really understood that I was already listening to all this like kind of underground stuff. Mm-hmm. But it was just, I just had it shoved down my head before I even knew what it was. And I just happened to just like it. So then when I tried to like go back and listen to like contemporary shit on the radio, like I never found anything that ever connected with me. And then probably like, I don't know when, maybe like 8th grade or something, on a summer vacation, I went to visit one of my brothers who was living in Austin, Texas, and took me to like my first, like, maybe it was in junior high sometime, but like we were hanging out basically at a punk rock flop house with a bunch of anarchists, and fucking like went to my first show in like some weird venue where it was like maybe it was like a tire garage or something, and some like like half hardcore new metal type band was playing, like not the most punkiest thing, but it was like totally DIY. Yeah. And then from then on, like I got back home and just like have never stopped going to punk shows, started throwing shows. By the time I was in high school, like, I don't know, booking all kinds of crazy shit, like Dropkick Murphys, and I don't know. Then like the hardcore bug, like, I don't know, I think it was like a long time ago, but I saw Sick of It All like at a Warped Tour in like 97. And that's where I really was just like, got knocked on my ass and was just like, oh my God, that's like the coolest mix of like the heavy, like thrash metal I love, but also like all the catchy punk rock shit I like. And so then it was just like on, like, ever since, just right down the rabbit hole.
Of course. Yeah. There's a moment where you start to spiral, and then there's like, there's no end in sight. There's a lot of really cool things that I want to unpack there. I thought it was, cool having so much underground influence at such an early age, just through your parents or your, through your siblings, like you were saying, having a half pipe in the backyard. And like, I don't have kids myself, but I've heard through other, either parents who are either my age or a little bit older, it's whatever is that child is surrounded by, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, is like normal to them. So it's not like a one size fits all for kids. Like, some people grow up with like super conservative family members, and then it's like that's normal to them. But someone on the opposite spectrum can grow up with moms who are bringing them to all ages punk shows and being like, yeah, jump off the stage or whatever it is. So I think that's cool to have that. I feel like everyone kind of starts in all these different pockets, and then eventually hardcore or just like DIY in general kind of brings all those different backstories and different walks of life all together, all under the umbrella for like heavy music. So yeah, that's very, very cool. So So when you were, so all this stuff was happening all in Las Vegas. That's where a lot of this origin was happening, correct?
That's where it started. And then when I was actually in junior high, we moved to southeastern Idaho, and so I finished high school and junior high up there. So that's where like I really kind of cut my teeth on like the DIY stuff, because there was no bands coming through, there was no scene at all. And so for me to like, I had seen shows in like other places like Austin, Vegas, Salt Lake, and seeing like these really fucking cool DIY like scenes where like all the bands that there was a lot of like the Epitaph Fat Record stuff that I was into back then. Like I'd seen like these big shows. And so like to have that, we had to like completely get on the phone, and like there wasn't even like really an email thing going on, maybe some like old school chats, but it was really like call and bug people and be like, I can book a show. And then I started booking bands and somehow got like, I don't know, like when I was in high school, like just booking bands that I had no business booking, and then like renting out like the venue in this little town in Idaho that would bring in like, I don't know, like your big like rock type band shit, you know, like Soulfly played there, which was like cool because I dug Sepultura, but like it was that kind of a venue. But then when we were booking bigger shows, we're like, well, fuck, maybe we can like rent it. Let's go talk to them. Then we like rent it, sold out like a Dropkick fucking Ducky Boy show on like the Gangs All Here tour, turned into a total shit show. The tour manager, like everybody, like I didn't know what I was doing. So like the promoter, the bunch of windows got broke. The tour manager was ripping us off. It was just like that perfect thing. Like, welcome to showbiz, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like the only people that were cool in the band, like I remember like Mark Glenn from the Ducky Boys was super cool, and like Al Barr and Ken Casey, like the band guys were totally appreciative. They're like blown away that there's like 400 kids in this little spot where they probably expected 75 kids. But every person to do it, the business aspect, like fucking hated us. The promoter wanted to sue me, saying that his pregnant wife got shoved by some belligerent fuck. So like me and my brother actually ended up like sitting with this promoter, like this total like tough guy, businessman prick, yelling at me, telling me that I'm booking Rick Springfield, motherfucker, and the crew, motley fucking crew, and your little bullshit. And he's like screaming at me, like trying to like shake me down for more money. And like the tour package got everything, but he thought that because it was such a big show that like I had, you know, maybe like $1,500 cash, and he could shake me down for like double the, you know, the deposit.
Sure.
So it's just like a great introduction for me to like things you like, bands you like, and then how no matter how good the show is, the poor bastard in the little town that put it on fucking has the most miserable time and wants to just like, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I think doing DIY, like fill in the blank, whether it's like filming shows, playing in bands, booking tours, like there is a side of it that does have that like professionalism, things like that. And I feel like a lot of that is maybe a little bit more not normalized, but you know, in the age of the internet, it's very easy for people to do communication and things like that. But like you were saying, when you started doing shit, it was like you pick up the phone and do that, and you're just like, well, I hope that they come here. You can't like DM them on Instagram like, hey, how close are you guys or whatever. So I think that's pretty wild. Just to have some of those.
Yeah, that was in the days, like it was such a trip. I remember booking like Buried Alive, and like something that, like at the time then I was like emailing Matt Pike, who was booking, it was like Death Threat and Buried Alive. And I remember specifically like giving them directions to this weird, because then I wouldn't use a venue. We had like a cool rehearsal space above a music studio where some friends were living.
Sure.
But like it was hard to find because it wasn't a real address. And I remember I like sent them the directions, and I don't know if it was like Vogel or Aaron or somebody. When they got there, I'm like, how the fuck did you find the place? And they're like, dude, we used like Google Maps or some shit. It might not have been Google Maps, but MapQuest or whatever was like the jam for touring bands like in 1999. And I was just like, oh fuck, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
They do this every day. Of course they have some way of,
Yeah.
they don't need somebody to like give them. But I'm thinking like when friends like would come from like out of town, you like go down Main, second left, past the alley. It's upstairs.
Yeah, you'll see a pizza place, turn right. Yeah, like now it's just here's my pan. Come straight to me. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so you had like a pretty crazy introduction. One thing I wanted to ask before we go any further, you said you have a twin brother, and his name is
I do.
Bees?
His name's Jason, but everybody calls him Bees. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is there some kind of funky story as to why? Like, did he get stung by a bee or something? Or I'm just curious.
Just like everything. Like everybody calls me Stu because my middle name is Stuart, and so when I was younger, they used to fuck with me and call me Stu and Stewie and just talk shit, and so then it kind of stuck in the thing. But my brother was the same thing. Like he had shaved his head, and we were booking some show, and like on the flyer, like I had copy and pasted like Xerox style the thing of Ray B's from Warzone. Like, I don't know, like all young hardcore kids do. And so it's like a picture of him in like construction gloves. And then we were just making fun of my brother because like he had a shaved head, big nose, and we were just calling him fucking JBs instead of Ray B's. Okay. And then it just stuck. Got shortened down to B's, and then yeah.
I haven't talked
like
about it.
Like all good nicknames that stick, you know.
Yes,
friends making fun of each other.
I feel like some of the best nicknames start as like you hate it at first, and then you just like, okay, I guess that's what it is. Because you kind of like
if you
own
like it
point.
loses the thing.
Yes, exactly.
It's gotta bother you, and then it becomes special.
Yeah. I don't think I've really brought it up on the podcast ever. But I've talked about it a few times. Like I have Crohn's disease, and before I was like properly diagnosed, I would have like the worst gas in the world. So I'd be like jamming with my friends in one of the bands, and then I would just like, just fart in the band, at the band practice as you do. And my bass player at the time, Brent, he was like, "Oh, Spence is just spicing it up in here." And it's just like Spicy Spence, and I hated that nickname for fucking forever. And then like it was that thing where it's like, okay, I think I need to own this, and then it will lose its meaning, and then it's like kind of the forever nickname that a lot of my close friends or whatever. But not a lot of people know that it's because I had like an irritable bowel, and I was just like trying to relieve myself in the middle of jamming with my friends.
Yeah.
So that's a little spicy little anecdote for anyone who's listened to this podcast specifically.
That's fucking funny, man. And then you're lucky because then your original group of friends, like the nickname will go so long that they, out of respect, won't tell people it's because you're the spicy guy at practice, fucking crop dusting everybody,
Right. Yeah. Now that I've like been diagnosed and I'm on proper medication, it's like a little bit more manageable. Back then it was like, it was also, it was a recipe for disaster because we would always get like burritos and tacos before jam. And then it's like the aftermath during was like unreal. Yeah. So
the perfect storm, bro.
The perfect storm. That's right. Yeah. So we have a little bit of the groundwork as far as, just, getting introduced to that culture and the music and, seeing the different aspects where you hear a band that you really like, and then you hear another band, and you're like, oh, this combines this and this. I didn't even know that was possible. Let's kind of transition into Spirit World. Just tell me about just like the origin of like how that project came to be, and tell me how it works, because I've been obsessed with. As soon as I heard the record, I was just been obsessed with it. I'm like, I'm trying to find like a full lineup, or like you're the mastermind behind everything. Just tell me, pull back the curtain on some of the origins of that and how the band operates.
Yeah, I'd been in a band called Folsom, just like your regular hardcore band with a bunch of friends. And like it went like outlived any of our expectations. Like none of us ever wanted to, like thought we could do a band as a job or anything. But like we got to the point where we did a bunch of tours and like went to Europe and did a bunch of cool shit. And then it kind of all just fell apart right when it took off. Like we had just toured Europe, and MAD was booking us. And like I like at the last show in Berlin, I was talking to Mark from MAD, and like we were setting up like the next tour. And right when we got home, like the guitar player that's in Spirit World now moved, chased after a chick that was in law school to like Brooklyn.
Okay.
My twin brother had kids, so it all just kind of dissolved. And then I just I never stopped writing songs and riffs and shit. I just didn't have a band for a long time, and I didn't really think I was ever going to do one. And then I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago, we wrote our demo, and I started just like playing with Matt again, and Justin he sings in Wrist Meet Razor, and Austin, who played in Clenched Fist and Dead City and a bunch of bands. He used to live in Memphis, but he was down here. So I wrote this demo of like this cowpunk kind of stuff, and we played the first show, and it was great. Like people loved it, but at the same time, I was like, I kind of decided that I like had been missing it, and I wanted to like do like a kind of a formal, like serious project again. I didn't know if I would like get into touring, but after we played that show, I was like, a lot of personal stuff too, but I decided to like stop drinking, get sober, and like I didn't want to take that and then be trying to play shows and have all the old stuff, like the raging partying thing. And so I kind of I didn't know if I could do that, honestly, because I hang out with a pretty wild clique. And so I was like, I don't know if I can even like maintain any sort of sobriety. I had never really tried, I guess. And then also like being in that environment, that was a pretty big part of all of our nightlife shit. So then I kind of pumped the brakes and I just kept writing. And then that's when I like came up with the idea of doing like a thrash record that was like combined like all the 90s metal I love and like all the hardcore I like with that fucking great bounce and the like Cleveland style. And I was like, well, fuck it. I don't care. I don't need this band to be a job. So I'll just like write this metal record. And then that was when I was like staying home, not doing anything, like really getting a handle on sobriety. And so I wrote everything, like demoed it, taught myself how to like program drums on Easy Drummer. And like I didn't know how to do any of that shit. I was old school, like sit in a room with all your friends until you like make a whole thing. And you never hear it back until you make a record. And then you're like, fuck, this part sucks. I wish we had time, but you're always out of time and money, you know?
Right, of course.
So I like taught myself how to do it all. And like whatever, the sobriety thing stuck and I figured I'd do it. So when I went and recorded and did most of the record myself with Sam Pura, just like me and him hanging out, writing. Well, everything was written, but like tracking and doing all that. So then I just kind of collaborated. And then the response that it got, like, I mean, I knew I liked it, you know what I mean? Like, but you never know, like, something special until, like, crazy shit starts happening. And that's kind of, like, what happened with that record. Like, that batch of songs, I just put it out. And I totally fucked it up digitally because I didn't know what I was doing. So, like, the singles weren't ready when they were supposed to be and like all that kind of shit. So like didn't get any playlisting on Spotify, but like slowly but surely, like all kinds of shit started happening where a lot of people I respect, like got a hold of that record, even though it still hasn't really gotten out. But like, that's how it like got played on the radio, like on the BBC, like Daniel Carter just somehow word of mouth heard it, hit me up and was like, hey, can I play this shit? I love it. And then that kind of snowballed. Cool. Yeah, like all this weird stuff that, I mean, I'm really thankful and blessed to be in the position where like now the record's going to get released on Century Media by the time this interview comes out. Like got hooked up with Nick Storch over at the Artist Group that books like most of my favorite bands like fucking Behemoth, Ghost, Frank Turner, Tiger Army. So he's going to book the band and then signed a deal with 5B Artist Management with Adam Foster over there that does Behemoth and Creator. So like all this crazy shit is just like, I mean, I kind of manifested it sitting by myself with a guitar. But then on the other end, that's the cool thing about art that's so inspiring. Like when you don't have expectation, you just like put a lot of your heart and soul into something. Like you never know what's going to catch. And it just like
yes,
right place, right time, like Death Wish and Safe Inside helped me put out the first vinyl pressing. And then I did the short stories myself, and like everything just, I don't know, just like one of those things that caught on, just like how you heard the record and dig it. Like it just kind of caught the ear of a lot of people, and it's got legs of its own. So now I'm kind of like trying to figure out how to do these fucking songs justice and like get them out on a better label, like get out, play some like big boy shows, and you know, kind of like see what we can do with it.
Yeah. There's a, you know, as far as the timing of when this was released, there's some, you know, little nuggets of new information or like super timely information. But I really want to dig deeper into that, just that aspect of you just like writing a record, like more so for yourself versus like I'm trying to make, you know, like having expectations for it to be a hit. Because I've been in that position where it's like I'm trying so hard to appease some kind of distant fan base that I haven't even like accumulated yet, if that makes sense. Versus just like I want to write the shit that like that puts me on fire, or like, you know, I want to make the band that like my scene doesn't have. Like most scenes will have like, you know, a standard of like, you know, we're the crossover scene, or like we're the metallic hardcore scene, or we're the New York punk scene or whatever. So I have always been like, well, I've always wanted to see this kind of band. I might as well just start that band and kind of do that. And I feel like you said, like when you have your expectations so low, any amount of recognition or opportunities that come your way just feel like over the moon, versus like, I need to make this so I can do this. It's like, I'm just going to make this and see what happens. And it seems like that was the kind of the mantra for Pagan Rhythms, it seems like.
Yeah, and I just like I've always been like kind of the creative process is something I've really tried to hone in on. And for me, like I said, like I never stopped writing songs. So like it wasn't just Pagan Rhythms. Like I have two full lengths ready. Like we're recording the second one, which is a follow up, like another like thrashy, like super heavy album. That'll be like next summer or fall on Century Media. But then I also have like 40 like country punk rock songs that'll be further down the line. But like I wrote all this material with the idea of like I'm gonna do like 3 full lengths of just the shit that I like, that I want to do, and just express myself. And I honestly was already carving out the time and money. Like, I don't give a fuck if anybody likes it or not. Like, I know like it would land, like just the quality of stuff that like I have to do. So like, I like it. I knew it would like find a thing, but I didn't in my wildest dreams think like as soon as it came out, like it was just gonna, before we even play like couture because of the COVID stuff, that it would take off like it did. But it just goes to show like you gotta put a little skin and blood in it, like into the art first. Like the content is the key. Like if you make something and it's fucking special, it doesn't matter what label, it doesn't matter how you release it. Doesn't matter if you fuck it up and do it yourself and you release it like shit, like and hit all the roadblocks. If it's not smooth, like if the shit's good, like it'll cut through the noise, you know? Doesn't matter how many bands are going.
Yeah, like there is, unfortunately, whether it's any major record label or a mid-of-the-line record label, or like a lot of people will overvalue the marketing and like the distribution and how everything looks versus the actual content, like you were saying, itself. And that is, you know, always top of mind where, you know, I have like a marketing background, and you know, that's partially what I, you know, do career-wise, but I always try to focus on like, what is the consumer actually giving a fuck about? And for most people on the music side, it's like, how do these songs sound? How, like, what's the length of the songs? You know, how can I access these songs? Like, you know, and it's this teeter-totter effect of like, sometimes songs could be so good, and I hate this. I hate that I'm going to say this. Songs could be so good that they could only be on Bandcamp, and people would be obsessed and only listen that way, even though having all your stuff on streaming is like the norm now. But if the songs are that good, then, you know, you could do that if you really wanted to. But yeah, I totally agree. Content, you know, the musical stuff that you're doing needs to be authentic and what you want to do versus trying to appease anyone else.
Yeah, and if you can do something that is somewhat unique in some way, shape, or form, like I don't think the stuff that I'm doing is necessarily like groundbreaking, but the way that you put the whole thing together, like I think that's important too, because if you just got to give something that people want to sink their teeth into. And I've noticed, like, I was really more nervous about releasing the book of short stories I did, because I've always kind of like thought about, I want to write something. I want to write a book, like, but I never like had the balls to sit down and do it. And so I kind of like married that idea into this at some point. I don't remember what came first, but I was like, I'm going to write a horror Western and I'm going to write a record and it's going to have the same characters and all this shit. And then I was just as surprised, like, by the response to the writing, because that's been overwhelmingly like super positive too. And that, like, I ended up getting a publishing deal we're working out with fucking Rare Bird Lit, that they're going to re-put out that book. And everything's just like kind of lining up, and it's really weird because it's going to be all the stuff that I made a couple of years ago is going to get like another kind of a retread and get out on like a more professional level, and really set up the next stuff to just be, you know, much bigger machine behind it, you know,
100%.
Which is exciting. Like, if you're going to make shit and like spend the time to like obsess and go nuts over it, it's pretty fucking humbling and badass to like think that you can actually get an opportunity to do it, you know?
Yeah. I definitely want to talk about the book and some of those aspects, but I think it would be cool if we just kind of focused a little bit on, like you were saying at the beginning of all that, just like thrash music overall is not like a groundbreaking kind of subgenre. There's like a lot of kind of relays and things that connect from band to band, but it feels like, in my opinion, every band can kind of spin, you know, the thrashy crossover riff kind of sound in their own way. So I'm having flashbacks to when I had a very close friend band from Atlanta called Living in Fear on the podcast. They're kind of in that same realm of crossoverness. So I asked this question, so I want to ask you this as well. What, in your opinion, makes a good riff? Full stop there. I want to see how you react to that.
A good riff is the one that you fucking rewind. You listen to the song and you go, fuck, and you like have to go back.
Yes.
Like, if you don't go back, then it doesn't count, you know, because there's a lot of riffs that are okay that like have the right vibe, you know, and are well played. But I guess a great riff, I'll say, it has to have that thing where like somebody, when you show somebody the song, you're like, wait till it hits this fucking part, like whatever it is, if it's like a madball part or, you know what I mean? Like, everybody has their own little jargon for like what they say, but like, you know, it's got to have that, like, and for me, I think it's the rhythm of it that I've really tried to do is, I don't like super busy technical stuff. Like, it took me a long time to really get into the super like technical death metal stuff. I mean, I always liked it, but I liked stuff a lot more like Obituary and I don't know, like 6 Feet Under, like that stuff. I immediately was like, fuck yeah, that's my jam. But like even like Cannibal Corpse, like some of their stuff, like it took me a long time to just kind of be able to like, I didn't have the ears for it, I guess, like to really follow the riffs. And now I can go back to some of that stuff and be like, oh my God, that's so sick. But for a long time, it was too much. It was just like a fucking freight train that I couldn't like unload. And so I always try and keep things like more at a rock and roll, like rhythm and blues type of a, just a beat where you can just like bounce to it, but then also add in the stuff that like makes it cool, like a little Slayer run or, you know, just like all the little tricks. Cause I'm not very good at guitar, like never have been.
Right.
Like, I'm just like a, I don't know what you call it, but like all my friends are way better at guitar than I am, but like I'm the guy that writes the songs. So whatever that special thing is, and it's not because I can like play something that's like intricate. am more comfortable telling myself it's still fucked up, change it, and like cutting things apart. Like
Yes.
I do a lot of self editing, and so I think that separates me from a lot of other songwriters. And then just being in tune with like, if I cut this out, throw in a ring out part, and then go back into it and like keep the same head bob, it just has more impact. So I think the rhythm and shit is the most important thing.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because for every project that I've been, it was like the same thing. Like, I'm no shred god. Like, I can't rip all these ridiculous scales and all this. So because I couldn't do that, I was so hyper focused on like the songwriting and how parts fit together and like, you know, like building transitions, but then over time being like, oh, like it can be as simple as hard stopping and then going for like 4 counts into the next part and just do it a little bit slower or something like that. So I feel like a lot of guitar players overall who have insane chops maybe don't have that skill set of like, I wrote this incredible thing, but I don't know where to go after this. And, you know, people like you and I can be like, oh, like it makes sense to like do this again, but half time, or like, you know, pick it back up again, or however it works. But yeah, there's definitely like, it's one of those things.
You gotta
like,
be.
No, you go.
You got to have like the courage to take your baby and throw that fucker off of the cliff too, you know? Like
Sure.
you can sit there for 4 hours and like write that part that you're so proud of, but then when you start putting it into a song, like the song has to come first. So if that part's going to be part of this thing, they like, because the song will start becoming its own beast. And then if that really cool part you wrote is dragging or like just like fucking it up, you got to have the balls to be like, oh, I love you, but go fuck yourself. And then,
Yeah.
you know, which that takes a long time to like your ear just to be able to be like, but now I just save stuff. Like when I cut it and I know it's like a really cool riff, now with all the shit being on my laptop, I can be like, I'll just take this riff, leave it in the session somewhere else, and maybe one day it'll like actually make sense. But
Right,
for today,
for
go
sure.
fuck yourself. You're out.
Yeah, I think when it came to like thrash music, the first band that was playing in that like leaned in that area, I was playing second guitar, and the primary guitar player Vince was like, he said something that just like stuck with me. It was like, because I was like, oh, Vince, like, because I just joined the band at the time, and I was telling him like, yeah, I like really like the songs, and he's like, I don't know, man, like a lot of my riffs are just like pretty stock, and I laughed, but like I started to chew on that a little bit more, and I was like, oh yeah, like there's not, like you said, anything groundbreaking when it comes to like, okay, I'm going from da-na-na or whatever it is, but like it's a matter of seeing the blueprint that thrash and like crossover music has, and being able to like do a little bit of this and pull back in this area and vice versa and all these different things. And I think that's really, really cool for bands to do that, who maybe lean a little bit more in the punk area, maybe lean a little bit more in the metal area. And I feel like, I think that's why I gravitated towards Spirit World so much. It's just like the very bare bones riff roadmap, but like being able to like still make it very sick and very driving the entire way through.
Yeah, and I tried to really focus on taking the things that I love from thrash, love from like the 90s, like late 90s golden era Victory records, like the All Out War, Integrity, like fucking Strife, like Hatebreed, all these bands that just like hit me so hard that like I still like go back and just love those records, you know? So I tried to combine like a cool like mix of like black metal, thrash, hardcore, but do it in a way where like I have a really short attention span with other people's songs, where like if they only do 3 riffs and then they play the same fucking 3 riffs like 5 times and call it a song, like I may listen to the record a couple times, but eventually I'm just like over it. So like I always like, I don't know, I always am conscious of that. Like I'll repeat things, but I like to try and do, like I will definitely delete something and write a new riff just for the sake of like, I don't know, keeping it moving so that it's not so repetitive, you know?
Yeah. And you know, going back to what you're saying, like what makes a good riff is like that one that's like, oh, just you wait until this shit kicks in. The one that like really hit me for me off of Pagan Rhythms, I think the first song that I heard, I think was The Bringer of Light as like a single, or like it was like a video or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay, like it gets straight to business, like right away, no like ringing or anything. So I was like, okay, this is really, really cool. And then listening to the record front to back, every single time, like when Unholy Passages comes in, and it's like the like really fast like blast beat, and then like the like my jaw like always just gets to me, like it always gets me so hyped. So I feel like that song in particular has knocks it out of the park, as far as like being a heavily rememberable riff song. So gotta applaud you for that one.
That song's a real motherfucker. We've been practicing, starting to get everything set up, and like just going into that triple fast part, because it has the and to play those like long tripled riffs. Like by the end of that song, because there's so many fucking riffs, like the forearm pump, it's just like dying, like just looking at, because I've been playing guitar practicing. I'm just gonna sing live, but we've just been working on it. Just like motherfucker, like why did you put like these riffs, dude?
Yeah, and on that song specifically, the like the blast beat at the, like I would assume everything on the album is like authentic, real instruments, no triggers or any of that bullshit. But I just love it's insanely fast, but it's all it feels like the drummer is like really pushing through. It doesn't feel like 100% like perfect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really shitty part. That like we cut that, and it was just like it was a real effort to fucking get that part tracked, because like I did that, and then because I programmed that, so it started out fake as fuck. But then at some point when it was time to track the acoustic drums, we didn't tell anybody that it was not possible. You know what I mean? And so like Thomas Pridgen, you have one of the best drummers in the world. Like you don't say, by the way, if this is too fast, we can slow it down. So now we're at the point where like the dude from Vegas that's playing drums with us, like he's been practicing every fucking day, like because that's 270 BPM. And so he has a practice pad, and he just sits there fucking, and it's 16 bars in that beginning one when it's long. And so he can't quite do it yet, but we're like, bro, come fucking showtime in like November, you're gonna have the fucking drummer bros sitting there watching. So he's like, he's gonna get it though. Like he's close, but the amount of time and effort he's got to put in to be able to actually reproduce that, I feel so bad, because like for me, I fucking, when I did it, because I don't ever write blast beats, I'm like, that sounds like some of these other records. Is that fast enough? Maybe I'll bump it up a little. And I just clicked a couple keys, and like to watch people try to make that record and then now learn it to play it live, I'm just like, fuck, I'm such a fucking asshole,
dude. Yeah, because I think there's a video on your Instagram right now where it's like the whoever's recording the drums. I don't know if that's the same dude, but he was like, "Oh, that's so fast," just trying to go, just trying to go.
Yeah, I think that's Thomas Pridgen on there. Like when we're like, it's not, and right before that, what's not on the tape is like Sam Purick, because he's a funny motherfucker. He's like, it's not fast, just lay into it. You just gotta feel it. And like, as the guy's playing it, we're sitting in the control room like, there's no fucking way you can play this. No one can play this.
No one can play this.
And fucking, he was close. He's like, brrr. We're like, well, shit. We'll leave it. We can get the take.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's it may be a blessing in disguise to have that like God forbid you do a blast beat that fast, but then like as soon as it picks up in the next part, it's like so tight. So it's like we're all gonna get through this part, but then it's like right back into it. So that's probably one of my favorite tracks.
And normally the next part would be fast, you know, like after that blast beat, that next part, like that's like a relaxing riff now, even though in another song, that would be considered a fast one.
Right,
so when we
right.
play that, we're happy to get to that riff. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, here's the easy fucking part.
Yeah, it's the
funny.
contrast of those two things, you know. And that's a big thing for any, you know, going back to what we were saying about songwriting, is like having that contrast of like super crazy, like, all right, we're still like crazy, but then now we're into this like extra crazy part. So like, yeah, it's pretty wild. What is like the one song off of that record that either has like a killer riff or just like a certain part that you're just like most psyched on? Whether like other fans of the band like picked up on it, you're like, I'm really glad that we, you know, put this on record.
I don't know. I like a lot of them, but I'm fucking burnt on that record. So like for me, like when you said that, I'm just thinking about riffs on the new record that I'm like, I can't fucking wait until this comes out.
Sure.
So like at one time, I know like I was really stoked on how the breakdown at the end of Pagan Rhythms, where it's got that really Pantera fucking like banner wee with that cool pinch harmonic, like, because I never could have wrote that. Like I wrote the riff, but it wasn't until my buddy Randy was recording it, and he was like he did all the solos and shit, and then we were just like, try and like sauce that up, and he just started Dimebag Darrell in it like a motherfucker, and I was just like, damn, like I can't play that. I probably could never do it, but on the record, I'm like, to me, that sounds like when people hear that, like, that's not a normal riff that like, you know, some normal band writes. That's like you know,
that's somewhat of a step beyond. I think that there was like some either solo off of some new stuff, and there was like a video that you posted, and he just ripped it like no worries, and it was like whoever's like hitting record is like, nice. It's just like,
amazing.
Like, do you know how good at guitar you are? Like, my God.
Yeah, it's always fun. Like Randy's he doesn't play a lot of fast stuff like that, but me and him have similar, we're on the same wavelength. So like at the end of, I forget what song, maybe it's on Ritual Human Sacrifice on Pagan Rhythms, that last song. Like when he does that solo, I was just like, no, bro, fucking give me the blues. Like fucking hit me with like a Danzig thing. And literally the next take is what's on the record. Like maybe he played it twice, but it was basically, it's not like with him, like we're on the same wavelength. So when we come up with stuff, it's not like I don't know, it's crazy because I could never play anything that fast, and he can just like, I don't know. But he doesn't know how he does it either, because he's like, I don't know, it's your songs. Like, it just comes out. Like, I don't practice this shit. Like, I play in, like, punk bands. Like, he just did a record with one of the dudes from Alkaline Trio, and then he came and met me to work on those new songs. And so he was just like, I don't know, dude, I haven't played any metal. Pulls his Explorer out of his fucking thing, and it's just, like, perfect, you know?
Right.
Like, one of those weird coincidences. It's like, you can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I love that. So just correct me if I'm wrong. Has I keep confusing that. Has Spirit World played any live shows at all?
We've played, not with the metal stuff that's on Pagan Rhythms. We played 2 shows with the demo and like split material. Played with Power Trip and then Citizen and Culture Abuse. But no, we haven't played a show in a couple years.
Yeah. So is there anything that, like, you know, as shows are starting to come back, it's been funny because you've been sharing a lot of like different like other shows that are coming down the pipe within your area, and I was like, I'm just kind of waiting. I'm like, when's the first like Spirit World show with all the new Pagan Rhythms material that I can hopefully either make a trip down for or see some videos of?
Yeah, I don't know, because like I said, Nick Storch is booking it, and so we're trying. He's got a bunch of stuff in the works, but it looks like none of them have been announced, so it'll be like maybe December in LA at the Decibel Beer Fest in LA with it should be announced by the time this is out, but that, like, we're on that one with like At the Gates is doing Slaughter of the Soul, which will be badass.
Dude, sick.
And then there's a couple other shows and a couple big tours we've been trying to figure out, but none of it's locked up because one's in Europe, which as of now, like it hasn't quite, nothing's really popping tour wise yet. So I don't know if that's gonna happen. But yeah, it's we're gonna do just the metal stuff probably, and then in Vegas, like our shows will combine and do both because the punk rock stuff's fucking fun as fuck, and our shows are crazy. So like we'll probably headline a Vegas show and then do I don't know if I could sing the more like punk rock country stuff after Screaming That Hard, so I'll probably do like half of the set will be like the cowpunk stuff and then drop into like either the Pagan Rhythms intro sample or the one from the new record, and then do like a live set of metal stuff, you know.
I see.
But it'll take a while to do that, like touring and playing out where I feel like we'll get I don't know, I don't want to be that weird band that like is playing with Obituary and fucking comes out with a Telecaster and drives people away. So I got to kind of like build both segments of what I'm doing up to where, you know, it's cool. Yeah. Cool to do it. I don't want to be an asshole and like have people wanting to headbang and, you know, punish them with fucking rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think any fans of Obituary would mad fuck with it. But I feel like you guys have that perfect blend of like, you could play hardcore fest, but you could also play with like big metal wigs and all that. I saw that you have shared a number of different like videos of like other big metal heads within the scene being like, you gotta go check out Spirit World. That shit is sick. So like, since that record came out, like it's coming up on a year's time kind of now.
Yeah, I think it came out in July. It's like a year.
Yeah. So who's someone that, you know, either shouted out the record or you just know that they've like at least listened to it, that you're like, I could have never expected my like these riffs that I wrote, you know, in a very novice setting to reach the ears of someone that I look up to?
All of them, really. I mean, I had no expectations, you know. So like, I had a bunch of weird stuff. Like I don't know, all of them. Like some of the videos that were posted, like those are like friends of friends sending people stuff, and then like, trying to think, like the dude from AWOL Nation like hit me up and was like blown away with the record. Like just a lot of weird guys that and a lot of like hardcore dudes that like we have similar circles, but I don't really know personally, you know. Like I don't know, like it's always cool. Like I'm not an asshole like that. Like I don't expect people to like my stuff, so I'm always stoked like when anybody, even like old friends of mine that like hear the record, you know. So like all of that stuff is always mind blowing to me because I'm still just like, I'm just a normal punk dude that like, you know, I'm not a guitar player. I'm not like in the music biz. So anything that I ever do, when people take the time to get like stoked, even like you loving it, like doing this, like that doesn't get lost on me. Like how special that is to like put together 5 riffs and have somebody like geek out on it. Cause I do that every day. Like I get up, I'm listening to new records. I'm like fucking, like not always punk and hardcore and metal, but like I listen to a lot of stuff. Like, and it's a daily thing where I like need music to like, I need to find something. I need to like revisit records like constantly. So to me, like it's a very special, like, I don't know, almost like spiritual, like meditative thing where I'm like a certain record. Like when I drive home from Phoenix tonight, like there will be something I listen to and like I get into my shit. Like, and half the time you never meet those people, never get to be like, you motherfucker, like you saved me on like 1,000 long drives where I could put on that album you made and just like get me home. So anytime anybody like tells me shit like that, I'm always like super just stoked, you know?
Yeah.
Whether they're famous or not, you know?
Yeah.
Honestly.
No, yeah, definitely. Like it doesn't need to be, you know, the new Metallica record, like where like people can message that band and be like, yo, thank you so much for doing this. like, but that band isn't like perusing through their Instagram DMs or, you know, getting, you know, like, even if they got fan mail, like, you know, all the members of that band don't have time to sit down and go through. So it feels like almost ultra crazy when you're a band of like a way smaller caliber, but there are people who are like, yo, your record like put me through this like weird time in my life, or I get DMs to this day of people like, yeah, like I drive for work, or like I spend a lot of time like on my own where I need to listen to podcasts, so like what you do is really helping me. And that's just like fuel into the tank for me just to keep going, right? Like it's not just like,
I
all
love
right.
that. That's the validation, the magic, man. Like, I mean, on one hand, you don't do stuff like creativity. A lot of times is like a compulsion where it's like you make art, you make content because like you just do it. You don't really know why. But then when other people like tell you, like I always just kind of put that stuff in the bank for when like things aren't going well, and you're just like, you know, it is somewhat important, like what you do. But music has had such an impact on my life that like I can never take for granted like a certain song at a certain time can like really fucking help somebody, or like just, I don't know, turn you up, turn you off, whatever. Like
Yes.
it's magic, really, truly.
Yeah, it doesn't need to, like, not every band is going to be writing these songs with intent to like, you know, help someone through a dark time in their life. Like sometimes it is as simple as like, yo, like this, you know, this record was really a breath of fresh air that I needed to get through, like to actually still continue to care about like heavy music, or I just like, I needed to hear that breakdown or whatever it is. Like, I think, you know, overestimating, like, I feel like people maybe overthink like how much, or maybe underthink how much their music might actually have influence for people in all parts of the world, which is really, really crazy. So yeah, I think it is super important just to make art. Like you said, I think if that is in your DNA, and I feel like it is in mine, is like, I'm not like really sure why. I think if I broke it down to its bare necessities, it's like I started doing this because I saw a need for it and a lack of like anyone else doing it. Like it's the classic like power trip, if not us then who kind of mentality. Like, you know, you have to kind of carve your own path.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, you got to like listen, like there's something to be said of like having a muse, whether that's like a certain spark of inspiration, but if you're not in tune to stuff, like you kind of miss when the door opens. You know what I mean? Like, and it can be anything. Like it happens to me at work too with stuff, you know, where it's just like totally non-creative, on one hand, non-fulfilling, but like if you pay attention, there's like a lot of good shit you can get in your life and a lot of value you can like get out of how you invest your time and energy. But you really got to be mindful of like steering yourself, because if you don't, like you can get in these ruts where you just don't feel like you're getting anything in return, and it just fucking deflates your attitude, your positivity, and you're just like feel like you're out there digging a fucking ditch with no way out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I listen to new music, because, you know, listening to the same records that you have for 20 plus years, like, sure, that's fine and dandy, but I feel like it's the new music and the new records where it's like, oh, like someone did this, but like did this kind of different spin on it. And that's where like the inspiration and the innovation really can like take its toll, right?
Yeah, I'm always on the hunt, like always. I've been doing it like I don't even remember a time in my life when I wasn't just hunting. And now it's so badass, like having like just having access to like Spotify and shit, where, and then I don't do a lot on social media, but you know, like nowadays when you see something, that time period of like, well, now I gotta like, maybe I'll see them live, or maybe I'll find their record in a store, like that's gone. So it's like, you fucking see somebody say something about a band, you're like, within 5 minutes, I'm listening to it, like, which is so cool. Cause like, I don't know, I can't tell you, like, it's nonstop that I find new bands and new shit. Like the new fucking, whatever it's called, the Ikulu record, that fucking total Cro-Mag sound and shit. Like that one just blew me away. Like I had missed them, like whatever their first stuff was. I just jammed the fuck out of that. Like that new Salem record has been on repeat. Like, I don't know. I just find like cool shit nonstop.
Yeah.
And that like always, I go back and revisit like things I consider to be like classics a lot. But now I'm like breaking them down, like looking at production, like driving up here last week, like my iPod, or not iPod, but the aux cord was fucked up.
Oh, okay.
So I was only getting the right channel. So I listened to like 6 albums produced by Ted Hutt and was just like breaking down like, oh, this is how he fucking balances his stereo mix. He's got like the fucking piano,
wow,
the keys, all the lead guitars in the left. And so I'm like, I'm going to manifest making a record with that dude. So I'm just like, you know, it sounds weird, like I'm a fucking freak, but like, I don't know. That's just the way my brain works. Like I spent like 5 hours just like breaking down his mixes because my fucking aux cord was broke. You know what I mean? It's just like I never would have thought I would have did that.
Right.
But I'm like driving and I'm like, what the fuck? I only have one channel. What the fuck?
Right.
And then ended up being cool, you know?
Yeah, but that just goes to show how obsessed with music you are, where like 9 out of 10 people would have been like, oh, this fucking sucks, and just complain about it, and, you know, like probably unplug it or listen to the radio or do something totally different. But you were just like, all right, let's go hyper, like Bill Nye the Science Guy, like hyper focused on just like analyzing only the right channel with this one producer. That is just like so funny that you would like, all right, I see this as an opportunity. Yeah. I'm going to take it.
Yeah, and it was funny because I listened to, it was 2 Lucero records, and when he did those, like that was when they added a lot of horns and shit to their music. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, well, I wonder if he balances it the same like when he does Gaslight Anthem. So then I listened to like American Slang and then Brian Fallon's second solo record, and then I was like listening to fucking the new Boss Tones record he did. But I was just like, you know, down the rabbit hole we go. That's like, 100%. That's why me and Sam Pure are fucking best friends, because that's one guy that like when I nerd out about records, like he doesn't listen to the same shit I do, but he does the same like fanatical, like what makes a good record? Like, why do I like this? What is pleasing to the ears about this? Like, why are the drums so punchy? Like me and him both like just connect on that insanity of trying to make like a classic record, you know?
Of course. So we're going to take a little bit of a transition here, because I do want to transition back to the book that you were kind of alluding to. But before we get to that,
yeah,
you did Army Men merch. How did you do that?
Cowboys and Indians and demons, motherfucker.
Okay.
Army
yeah.
Men.
Well, yeah, like it's the, you know, it's wildly known as that. But like how, like, again, that goes back to a little of what we were talking about like doing things just a little bit differently versus the tried and true ways of doing different DIY band things. So yeah, so you had Cowboys and Indians and Demons as like little figurines that people could buy with merch. Like who did you utilize to do such a thing?
Well, I did it all myself. Like I didn't make the figurines. So what I did was like, those are just like the classic American Cowboys and Indians. This company like bought the patent to redo those, because those are the same like the designs and the way they hold their hands and like have the bow and arrow. Those were like super popular in the 40s and 50s. And so that company closed down, and there's been a couple other brands that have like bought the patent, and they just put them out for like, they're like dollar store shit where you can buy like a pack of like 20 of them.
Right.
So I was looking for something cheap. So I bought those, stripped them out of the packaging. And then the actual logo that I did a rip of the original like 1940 one that I found. And then I just kind of changed it around and put Comancheria and pagan rhythms and shit. But then the demons in there, because I like the whole premise of the book is like cowboys, there's Comanches in there, but then there's also like this occult element of their fighting the gates of hell, and there's some like kind of like that's where the world's going. And so I remembered when I was little there was this game It was kind of like a D&D type game, but it had these little badass knights and these demon guys with like ball and chain and like swords and shit with like wings. So I was like, wonder where the fuck I could find those, because that would be perfect, because I can put them in there and then it like completes the thing. So I fucking went down the eBay toy dork rabbit hole until, because I didn't know what the name of the game was, but we had it in my house, and like like I played with them when I was little, but they're like gone now. So I fucking I finally found it, and it's called it was such a weird name. It was I'd never even heard the name, because we just had them out of the box like they were my older brothers, but it's called Dragon Riders of Styx.
Dragon Riders of Styx.
Yeah, like it's either Styx or Stygia or something, but it's some fucking weird thing. So when I found it, then of course, like every other thing known to man, it's on the internet. There's a bunch of collectors, and so I started, like, it took me months to get like to like figure it all out, and then I just started buying like little lots of them, and I was finding these like parents cleaning shit up that didn't know that they could sell the individual ones for like $5 each. So I found some lots of them for like 40 of them for like, you know, $20. So I just like went and like pieced all the shit together and then put it together with when I was doing the records, you know.
And yeah, that's crazy that it wasn't even just like I'm buying this one thing and then like turning it into something that relates to my band and doing that. It took a couple elements to like, now it's like a package deal with Spirit World.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be the same thing. Like if it was just the Cowboys and Indians, it would be cool, but it would be missing like the demon thing. And so now, like in the second book that I'm writing, that'll be like the debut novel, it's gonna have like, I'm totally working those winged like demons, because I was gonna have some like hell creatures anyways. So now I'm just like incorporating them right into the fucking mythos, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I don't know any other bands that have like given out, for lack of a better term, like figurines, like with like a merch and like CD and vinyl kind of drop. I think that's like super creative that you did that.
Yeah.
So so the book itself, so the first one, Godlessness, is that the right title? So that came out kind of paired with Pagan Rhythms, and it sounds like another one is coming down the pipe with another release or something like that. Why did you want to write a book outside of like, you know, like there's a lyrical sheet and people have something to read along listening to the music? How did you want to pair those two different mediums together?
I don't know. I'm fucking psychopath. Like, I don't know. I just, like I said, like I like to make stuff, you know, like fiction writing is something that I've always like kind of, I'm the type of guy that like I watch a movie and I'm like, that was cool, except they fucked it up. Like they should have did this or did that. And like, I don't know. I've always like thought about writing like a screenplay or writing like a novel or something. And it's just one of the things. It's fucking hard to sit down. It's kind of like when you hear your own voice. Like I'm sure when you started a band or this podcast and you heard your own voice, you're like, am I going to fucking do this? I have to like listen to myself. Fuck this. Like that's how writing is a lot of the time. Like if you know no one's going to read it, it's easy to write a bunch of horse shit. Like you can just like do your assignment, or like a teacher that you know is not going to fuck with you. But like when it comes time to like write something that you want people to read and like, you know, it's got to like hold up. Like, I don't know. It's hard. That's why most people never write that first book. So I just kind of, I'm just at the point in my life where I just like shit that I want to do. Like I have the means and the ability. I'm just like, fuck it. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. Like I got to do shit. I have a compulsion to do it. I want to make records. I want to write books. I want to write a fucking screenplay. Why not? Who gives a fuck? Just do it. And then, you know, I don't know. You can't open the special doors in the universe if you just sit on the couch fucking, you know, thinking about it. You gotta put some blood on the page.
Yeah. I think a lot of any opportunity is learned or is earned by the blood, sweat, and tears that go into whatever your project is, whether that's a band, whether that's a creative endeavor like what I'm doing with Scoped. And it takes years, and it takes a lot of years of people like essentially either telling you to your face that it's a waste of time or like behind your back saying it's a waste of time. And I think you just got to stick to your, your cowboy guns and just fucking do it because it fulfills you. And yeah, like prove everyone wrong. I think there's a quote where it's like any crazy, entrepreneur is like crazy until they're not, like they just grow to that point where it's like, oh, okay, so yeah, this dude's legit, or whatever.
Yeah, and I think an important thing to realize in any creative endeavor is like, are you taking like photographs of things because you have a gig and you're being paid to like photograph, or are you just like doing it? Mm-hmm. And so if you can, whatever your creative fucking kink is, for lack of a better word, like
creative kink,
if you just like, yeah, you got to like do your shit. So like if it's something that makes you tick and like that's your kink, like you like writing songs or doing it, I mean, I don't know, like that's what's different. Like if you try and just do something but it's not really you, and it's not like these things that like you really deep down inside, like your soul will fucking steer you, like what's right. Like that internal voice, your self-talk, like it can be really negative, and like that internal obstacle can really fuck you up if like in your head you're like, your song sucked, that riff sucks, no one wants to hear your shit, you're never going to do it, you're not in the clique, what are you doing, you're wasting your time, your old lady's right, get a real job, bitch. Like all that stuff is like, I don't care who you are, it's in between everyone's ears. And so like one part is like you got to find your kink and know like what makes you happy that you want to make and share with the world. But then you also have to have like the fucking constitution and confidence and character to like shut down that inner fucking asshole that doesn't want you to do anything, and then push through that before you ever even get something to share. Like, and that's something that I don't know, people think talent like is this lightning in a bottle, and it's like these people do these things, but really like I have found it's hard work and discipline, and like go sit down and fucking play guitar every day for an hour, and after 3 years, like all of a sudden if someone walks in the room, you're not going to be embarrassed because they're going to say, God damn, boy, that's fucking sick.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that first year, like you may be so mortified that you can't even play the chord that like one person like giving you the shitty look and being like, would you just fucking stop? Like you're terrible. Like that one comment can like totally just crush you,
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing with anything creative, whether it's someone starting a podcast, someone starting a band, writing lyrics for the first time. The minute that they get any negative feedback, they overvalue that, and 9 times out of 10 they're like gonna hang up their hat. And for me, it's been such a obsessive like chip on my shoulder of like, I'm just gonna keep doing this until like literally no one is listening. Like when I have podcast episodes that drop that have 0 listens, then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But the fact that like, it is such like a grind to like, start with like, okay, 20 of my friends are listening. Now 50 of my friends are listening. Now 150 of my friends are listening. And like that will gradually grow up. And it's not about chasing the numbers per se, but I think as you do, whether you do photography or write riffs or, whatever, you have to do something so many times to like actually build that skill set. And like you were saying, like people think that they just need to be the most talented person and the world is going to come to them just because they can rip the fattest like guitar solo ever. And it's like, oh, let's give you a guitar deal here, join this band. Like that's not how the world works. It's like there are plenty of guitar players that are not super talented, but they've put in the time and energy to build up relationships with like Ibanez and Jackson and get those deals intact, or like, get their band out in front of as many people to like get those record deals. Like I think people have a terrible, terrible relationship with talent and hard work. They think it's like this when it's like it should like if you don't have talent, like you could like I think it's almost a flex to outwork the people that have talent when you have zero talent.
Most people I know that are successful, like that's exactly how it happens. Like most of the rich kids that fucking were super talented, I mean, they're not the guys that and gals that like in my life that I've seen really fucking blow my doors off and do shit where I'm like, wow, like that's fucking impressive. It's the psychos that just like don't give a fuck, don't give up, take the biggest risk, just like that people think are crazy, you know, like that's where I don't know, like there's something to be said of like just going all in on your shit, you know, on that kink, baby.
Go get the creative kink. That's the word of this podcast for sure.
Yeah.
So Stu, you've alluded to I guess some things that are coming down the pipe. You know, it sounds like Spirit World, like you said, album came out and now it's like got a proper backing to do a re-release and, you know, another record coming down the pipe. But if there's anything else that you want to like kind of tease or like bring to light as far as the time of this podcast being released, you know, I would love to get teased. And
I think, right when this comes out, I think like the first single of Pagan Rhythms will be coming out on Century Media. And then right when I get home from this, me and one of my best good homies from high school that works in film, like we're going to be doing a video for I think we're going to do Bring Her Light, but do like a total like spaghetti western, like fucking like badass video now that we got a budget for it.
Yeah,
so like that'll be cool. And then like I said, I don't know what we're going to do like live, but there's some cool shit coming up that when this comes out it should tie all in. But I'm excited, man. Like I said, I wrote 2, 3, 4 records worth of material. And so for me, it's been like a slow thing, but the next probably 2, 3 years, there'll be a pretty good stream of like content coming out, a bunch of cool shows. And like, I'm excited, man. Like it's fun to make shit, you know?
Yeah.
It's nice to have a plan and like, it's one thing to make it and stockpile it, but it's nice to finally get a bunch of the team together at a really high level that I know can like gives a shit, sees the big picture and like is going to help me really go push it, you know?
Yeah. And I think like the idea of like signing to a big label, I think has changed for me where it's like, oh, like I jump onto this and then they bring all these ideas and all these things. Like, no, I just want to like, I think when you get to that level, then they're giving you like, okay, we can float you this much money for this video. And you're like, all right, now everything that would have been super DIY and like calling as many favors in as I can now has like, oh, we can hire someone to do, you know, costume and makeup, or we can hire someone to do explosions or like crazy shit. So like, I'm loving the visual of, you know, kind of a spaghetti western for any Spirit World song. So I just love that.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like I have the whole vision of what I want to do, like videos, fucking stage setup, like eventually fucking, like I want to write a couple books, do a screenplay. Like I want to try and take this world I'm building and fucking just go crush it. So for like me, like just the fact that people heard like one piece of it, didn't even know I wrote a book, didn't see the toys or anything, and then connecting the dots where then I don't sound as crazy when I'm like explaining to people who are like, you know, they're actually like putting me in touch and they're like, well, actually we just, you know, we've done 5 books with Corey Taylor. Like, it's not crazy for us to like work with you on putting out your book. Fuck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so like, then you go from being crazy guy to like
genius guy.
I don't know. You like you have a path, and it's like, you know, because at the beginning of this, like I was saying the same stuff a couple of years ago to my friends and like to my girl, and they're just like, whatever, dude. Like, okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're like, okay, concept record guy. Everybody loves a fucking metal concept record.
Right.
But then as it like fleshes out, and I'm like, no, see, like here's the book, like it's actually out. Oh, it's all sold out. Record sold out. Book sold out. Here, got a record deal. Then it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It all happens for a reason, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's the whole thing with anything creative is that like there's never a guarantee that all of that will just be handed to you if you work hard. There is always that weird variable of like you got to have a little bit of talent, work your ass off for years, and during those years of working, you're the crazy dude, right now it's like Spencer's the crazy guy that puts out 2 podcasts a week and films all these bands and does all these things, and it's like it's what I love to do. And then but again, it's that it's the lack of guarantee that like, oh, if I do this for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, then I can do that as my living. Then I can do that. It's like there's no guarantee, but I am more interested in like chasing that dream and seeing if there's a potential for that. And enjoying like every minute of like being able to interview people like you and the number of other individuals that I've been able to connect with. So
you know what's inspiring to me about what you do is like, just like how I was talking about going down a Ted Hutt rabbit hole of like how he makes records.
Sure.
I also go down the rabbit hole of like all these different like creatives that like I just get obsessed with stuff, like whether it's a writer, a graphic novel artist or whatever. And like, especially bands, like me and you don't really give a shit about this interview, like on one hand, because right now, like neither one of us are like really have done anything super special, but give it 5 years and this may be something that like lives on the fucking dark webs, because maybe one of us does do something important. And then like some kid that's like trying to like follow in the footsteps, like you document all this stuff, like, and when you're documenting creatives, like the lifespan is so short, like these conversations, like I remember all the bands that I used to love, like you'd be lucky to read one interview like ever by a band. And then now like conversations like this, like it's cool as fuck to like capture like me and you talking about what we're doing right now in 2021. Cause you never know, 10 years from now, like people may be looking at this as like a, that inflection point where it's like, oh shit, this is before.
Yes.
Badass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm like, I think a lot of people that do anything on more so my side, as far as like the podcast, like they're always chasing the numbers and like, oh, who are the biggest guests that I can get? And while part of that is important because, having Brian of Knocked Loose, like, that does bring a lot of attention to the show that might not have been there before. Only interviewing people in smaller bands, like that builds up a level of reputation, but that doesn't like build the audience of the show. But I love being able to like you said, like capture someone's like where they are in their musical career, if you want to call it that, whether it's in hardcore, it's like their very first band. Cause like, I'm interviewing people that is like their very first time on a podcast and they've like never done anything, but who knows, like you said, in 5-10 years, it's like, they could be the next crazy band.
I guarantee you will have someone that you interviewed and then they will do something and then you'll be like, oh shit, like it'll be cool. Like that'll happen. Like if you keep doing this long enough, cause it happens in day to day. Like just, you never know when people like, I don't know. It's cool to capture stuff, man. It's badass. I commend you for like doing it. Cause like you're especially like, I like that you do the playlist too. And you pick out all the shit that you like that comes out. And like pivoting to that during the quarantine, like that was such a great move. Cause like I've checked out a bunch of bands just because you put them on there. And so it's like, I mean, it may not be, I don't count for like life-changing things, but like I got a good ear for music. And if I like your shit, like I'm a fan for life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not just of the first band. Then it'll be like, they could be on their third band and I'll still be like, oh yeah, this is that guy from fucking XYZ.
Yeah, of course. And I appreciate you saying that, so that if there is a person in some smaller band they interviewed, last year or this year and they become the next big band, I'll be like, I'll just use this clip of Stu from Spirit World to be like, listen, Spencer's on it. But it's funny that you bring up the playlist, because that again is like one of those projects, if you want to call it that, because it was like, I need to have content during the quarantine and the pandemic. So I started doing that, and I originally only was doing bands that we had filmed in the past because my mindset was, oh, we'll put a playlist together. People would be like, oh, Spencer's filmed this band. I'll go check it out. And then it like draws, almost kind of like indirectly chasing the views. And then over time, it's like, oh, this is getting super fucking repetitive. And this thing is going to last probably a little bit longer. And I think one of the first ones that I did that was kind of like outside of the norm of bands that we filmed before was like hey, these are new songs. And now that's like one of the most, as far as the time we're recording this episode, June's like playlist will be the next one coming up this coming Monday. And I'm like, it's always surprising to me, like all this new music that's coming down the pipe. I'm like, oh, how can last month be topped? And I'm like, okay, well, fuck me. Like, there's so much good shit here. And I think it's important for me to showcase different aspects that will resonate with different people, whether it's like, I'll get the super produced metalcore on the playlist, but that might bring some people over to listen to the more authentic New York hardcore style punk shit. And, again, try to bring as many eyes into one space, and then have some bleed over as well. So.
Yeah. And I think if like, you don't necessarily have to like stuff. Like I've never been a big metalcore guy, but I can tell the difference between like a generic, like lame metalcore band and something that I dig. Mm-hmm. So like, I think being open-minded and just like, if you curate it and just put what you think is like the best stuff, like I'm telling you, like I've dug through your playlist a few times and just looked because, I find cool shit, but I'm also a digger. Like I dig for that fucking, I love having like, I'll go through all kinds of playlists and shit and just like, nope. And then you get one and you're like, go put it on your playlist,
100%.
And then be stoked and be like, ooh, finally, I fucking got one. Jesus, who curates this piece of shit?
Right. Yeah. The goal for those is never to like, you need to like 50 of these bands front to back the entire way through. I'm like, I want to put you onto one of 50 as like a forever fan. Yeah. Like that's my mindset for a lot of this shit is like, I'll put out multiple podcasts a week, but I'm not expecting you to listen to one of them. I just want to put out one that you're like, either, yeah, I'll go check this out, or I know that band, or whatever it is. So I think it's about just constantly showing up for people and having them, decide what they want to pick from it.
Yeah, hell yeah, man.
Well,
cool, man.
Well, Stu,
you got anything else? Or are we ready to wrap this motherfucker up?
I think we're ready to wrap this up. I know you got to get going, so I appreciate all the time that you've given me. Again, like you were saying at the top, this has been long overdue. The last portion of the podcast is a favorite mosh story that you would like to bring up. So it sounds like you've booked a number of your shows back in your heyday, so I'm sure you've got a couple of stories to pull from. So whatever is first to your mind.
Well, I personally have not moshed in 4 or 5 years. So I flew out to Houston to hang out with some friends, and for a Death Threat show, it was like I forget who played, maybe like Pride Kills, Will to Live, Death Threat or something, and got all riled up for the Death Threats, pitting hard and stage diving, and it was like kind of a horseshoe empty thing.
Sure.
And everything's all great, and literally like, I don't know what they played. Maybe it was like, I don't even know. One of the jams, though, was like the encore song. One stage dive too many, like off the side of the stage, fucking bee stinger, fucking damn near broke my fucking tailbone, like lit right on my ass. And that fucking thing hurt. Like I did it when I was like, I've done it a few times in my life, but it had been a long time. Mm-hmm. And it was like fucking months, like maybe even a year. Like I would sit down wrong and be like, fucking Death Threat, Jesus Christ. And so like, I was just like, that's it. I'm done. Like, don't care. I will be fucking singing along on the side of the stage. So I've held pretty true to that, and the quarantine helped. So
yes,
we'll see.
It helps heal the past wounds of that. I love that.
Yeah. At some point, I think you just got to say stage dives. It's a young man's game.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Stage dives are young man's game where they can like literally have no one catch them and bounce up like a bouncy ball and be totally
and it
fine.
doesn't matter multiple times a night. But like I'm in that
100%.
zone now, like it's not cool. You do it one time and a year later you try and sit down and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's you know, you got to keep that tailbone intact. Stuart, this has been super, super fun. We've teased a lot of things that are kind of coming down the pipe for Spirit World at, you know, the time when this episode comes out. But if there's anything you want to send the people off with, plug, shout out, the floor is yours for whatever you got.
Just be cool to each other. Like, quit being a dick. Like, be nice. Spread the love. Everybody get along and, like, I don't know, go create something. Don't be afraid to let your fucking creative kinks out in the world, because you never know. It might change your life. Don't be afraid.
I love that. Shout out to anyone chasing their creative kinks, and shout out to Spirit World and Stuart. Go listen to Pagan Rhythms, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. This has been a blast.